Hey, how's it going? My name is Mike Squires, and this is the Couches Podcast, episode number 194. And my guest, Steve McDonald of Red Kross, Off, Melvins, and a number of other bands. He's had an amazing career. We talk about a lot in this podcast. And I had a great time talking with him. I hope you enjoy this podcast. The Melvins have a live, or not a live, an acoustic album coming out this month, October 15th, 2021. I hope you will go out and check that out. I've seen Buzz do an acoustic performance before, and it's killer. It's hard to imagine what that's going to be like before you hear it, but it works. Um, you know, the Melvins do not embrace convention in almost any form other than, you know, the the basics of rock and roll, but like electricity and heavy drums. It's killer. The songs are killer. The record is killer. Again, I hope you enjoy this podcast. I had a great time talking with Steve. If you are enjoying Couch Riffs, please, by all means, support us on Patreon. Patreon.com/couchriffs. Your support helps make this podcast happen. It also makes the cover song videos happen. Steve's going to be appearing in an upcoming episode, which I'm really excited about. There's a couple of things, really very, very cool things coming up involving, people that I have just always admired. And so that's really exciting for me, and I hope that you enjoy it. So thank you for supporting at Patreon. Also, thank you to Variety Coffee Roasters, varietycoffeeroasters.com, at Variety Coffee Roasters on social media. Coffee roasters, Variety Coffee Roaster. Jesus Christ. Go to their website. That's the only place where you can find a Couch Riffs coffee mug. They're $10. Add it to your cart and buy 2 bags of coffee and use the code CouchRiffs and you can get the mug for free. Whatever you want. Also, check out their subscription service while you're there. They'll guide you through a number of questions about how you like your coffee, what do you like in coffee, and they'll help you pick something off their menu. It's really cool. You can get your coffee delivered weekly, bi-weekly, or once a month. For me, I'd probably take that weekly joint if I was you. I can go through a bag of coffee pretty quick. So thank you, Variety Coffee Roasters. You guys are fucking awesome. Also, thank you to River City Guitars in Spokane, Washington. Every day is a buying day. If you have a vintage, cool, used, boutique-y thing, get a hold of them. sales.rivercityguitars@gmail. Tell them Squires sent you. They're like family to me. That's also one of the only places where you can purchase one of these awesome Marvin guitars, CN90 guitars. That's the guitar that we co-designed to celebrate the 100th episode of the Couches Podcast. And here we are almost at 200, and I got no plan to celebrate. It's kind of like your 20th birthday. Nobody cares. Maybe my 210th, it'd be like my 21st birthday or something. And then Couch Riffs will be legal to drink or use recreational marijuana. I don't do that stuff. Stay off drugs, kids. That's it. Don't forget the golden rule. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Do your best to not be an asshole, but just mostly do your best.
Hi.
How you doing? Mr. Big, he'll pop up every once in a while, but he likes, he likes to be close.
Oh, great.
He's
That
a stay
sounds like
close kind of fella.
what's his name?
His name is, the name he came with was Biggie, but I felt
Okay.
like he was a little more dignified, so I call him Mr. Big.
Okay.
Because, look how huge this guy is. He's
That's
giant.
so that yeah, he's a big boy.
You're a big dog, huh? Yeah.
That's funny. My 12-year-old son just the other day said he came home from seventh grade and he said he'd been given the nickname Biggie.
Really?
Yeah, he was excited about it. And I didn't quite understand. His name is Alfie. I wasn't quite sure where, and he's not particularly large, so I wasn't quite sure. He's kind of big, like your Biggie.
Right. Is he a hip hop kid?
No,
No.
whatever. It was. I guess that you had. It was like you had to be there, moment.
Yeah. But he was
But
happy about it.
he was excited about it. Yeah. Well, it's a new school, so the fact that he's been given nicknames already seemed like a good sign.
Right. Seventh grade.
Yeah.
Do you have older kids or
I
is
only have the one. I'm a
seventh
dad.
grade?
Yeah, we have one child, a 12-year-old boy.
By the time seventh grade rolled around for you, you were doing gigs.
I was, yeah. Seventh grade had become quite complicated.
Is that crazy for you to look back like through the scope at your son and
Yeah, yeah. It's been sort of. I didn't expect it necessarily, but it's been kind of. I mean, I don't talk to him about it. I'm not constantly saying, "Do you know what I was doing when I was your age?"
right? No, he didn't want to hear about that.
Yeah, and but I mean, I don't use it against him, or I don't use it at all. I don't use. I don't think that I do, but maybe I'll find out later that I did more than I realized. But I've been thinking about it a lot.
What I lived a very unsheltered life. I don't
You
know.
did.
Yeah, by the time I was in the seventh grade, I'd done most of the drugs already,
Okay.
and so when I
Wow.
encounter young people, it always blows my mind when I find out how old they are, and I imagine myself at that age. That's why I'd asked you, not
Well,
because
now, do you have any offspring besides Biggie?
Rosie, who's a little bit bigger than Biggie.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
she's of the same species as Biggie.
that's right.
Gotcha. Um,
Right.
yeah. Well, it's true. Yeah. Well, I too I was very quick to grow up myself.
Yeah.
I was in a real rush, and I don't know if that was. I think I had an older sibling. Do you have older siblings?
Yeah, that helped. And uncles that were old enough to turn me on to Foghat and Kiss and
Or young enough to turn you on to Fog Out and
yeah,
Kiss?
right. Yeah. Sorry.
Well, either way, but just idea that they weren't all that much older than you. It seems like.
10 years. Perfect.
And yeah, exactly. More like like an older brother from an earlier marriage.
Right. uh Red Cross there was no other band your guys' age that was doing stuff when you guys were doing stuff in the scene, was there?
They kind of were. Like the adolescents were pretty young. They're like Tony adolescent was probably about 16. I mean, I was 12, he was 15 or 16. And Jet, my brother's 4 years older than me. So he was a young teenager himself,
Right.
but we were going to gigs that are really like the first time I went to the Whiskey a Go Go, it's all ages, and I was 11, and so he was 15 and I was 11. We first started seeing punk bands, like that original crop of LA punk bands. Like we got to go to show. The first time we went to a show was in the summer of '78. So we kind of caught that first wave of the middle period. Like if you break that, I've just been reading the Germs it's an oral history from 20 years ago called Lexicon Devil. And
Right.
I didn't read it 20 years ago for whatever reason. It's part of this whole thing of me being interested in that particular time of my life, probably inspired by my son being that age. And so I recently read that book, and I've kind of been doing detail work on my memory from that era. And so if the LA punk rock scene kind of started in really early 77, late 76, we probably caught the mid period of that. If it lasted for 3 years, until the sort of Black Flag hardcore scene took over. But it was more of like the outer line area, the suburbs, that was focused more around the bands like the Adolescents and you know, then TSOL. Those bands came from Orange County, and they were teenagers or young adults, and that was kind of the next wave of the LA scene. So, but we were going to shows during that first wave when it was bands like X and the Germs and the Bags, and those were my heroes and my idols, and we got to see those bands play, and then we got to play shows with them right before the whole thing kind of changed and morphed into that Black Flag era that I just referenced or whatever.
Right.
So we caught the tail end. So like 79, we were doing shows by late 79.
This may be an incredibly naive question.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just taking a leap like everybody knows this stuff or whatever. But no, there's no naive, lame question.
Did you guys, was the name choice a nod at Black Flag's name?
Yeah, well, it was, I mean, I can't remember. Like I said, I've been trying to do detail work on my memory, and I can't remember how we came up with Red Kross, but yeah, we played all of our first shows with Black Flag, and they were kind of like our mentor band. And they kind of took us on as like, and along with a couple other bands, Descendants being one, and they were also kids too. And they were, you know, more like my brother's age. Billy's probably 4 years older than me, maybe. And but we were originally called The Tourist, which was a sort of self-deprecating name that was, for us, it was referencing our status at the local beaches as not living in a beach town. We lived a few miles inland. Right. Therefore, we were tourists, and we were kind of taking this on because at the time, punk rock hadn't, like, surf culture and skating culture eventually intermarried, but at that time it was still like very much Led Zeppelin and arena rock of the 70s was the stronghold on the beaches, and punk rock was this weird foreign hostile entity that you weren't welcome on the beach. So we were transitioning out of, because that's where we spent all of our summer days as normal kids prior to that. And then anyway, so we were called The Tourist. And then when we finally were going to play a show in a night, we had done a few shows. We did a show opening for Black Flag at a park in Redondo Beach as The Tourist. Our very first show was at an 8th grade graduation party in my hometown of Hawthorne. And I was graduating from 6th grade. So this is June of 79. I was graduating from 6th grade, but our drummer was graduating from 8th grade. And a girl that was having a party invited his band to play. She had no idea what kind of music we were. She must have assumed that we were like, because he was kind of the drummer of The Tourist wasn't really a punk rocker. He was kind of like a normal soccer kid, but he played drums in the school orchestra. He was the only kid we knew in the neighborhood that had a drum set. So we asked him to play. And so he was asked by, the girl, John's band, they probably do like Journey covers and Led Zeppelin covers. And that was the standard fare for a backyard party in 1979, would have been a cover band.
How did it go over?
Hard rock music. It didn't go over well. And
did you guys do all originals?
Yeah, we did we had like our first set of songs like that from our first EP. Those are pretty much already written. So we had like Annette's Got the Hits and I Hate My School and We're a Cover Band. But we would have played those songs along with, we did a pretty cool version of I Want to Hold Your Hand, where we went through the whole cycle once in a Beatle tempo. And then we did it a second time at a Ramones tempo. So it was like,
nice.
oh yeah. But we got booed by our peers. Those kids, they felt empowered enough to, you know, give us a really hard time in Lisa Stengel's living room in Hawthorne, California, and that's the girls' party, whose party it was, and you know, and there was also, it was one of those things like an eighth graders party, but there were like the weird, creepy high school dudes who showed up. It was
Right.
very like Dazed and Confused, like the Matthew McConaughey character kind of
Right.
vibe. And those are probably mostly the people that were booing us. But
Do you
the thing I
remember
didn't
as a
mention,
young punk rock kid, do you remember feeling like you had done the right thing and the right people were booing you, or were you bummed out about your first experience?
well, it was my first, well, it was a lot of firsts all at once, you know. It was probably also sort of like an outing ourselves in a sort of way, because up until that moment, socially, we probably weren't necessarily known as punk rock kids,
Right.
you know. Um, would have, well, also socially, I was way over my head. I mean, I was just graduating sixth grade. Here I was these kids were about to go to high school, you know, and so that wasn't really my peer group, so to speak. No one from my school was at that party, and but it was a lot of things. It was sort of like announcing that we were into this weird foreign, you know, like almost alien music. We were into this alien music that had only been rumored about,
Right.
and then yeah, and then this was our first live performance too, and you know, I mean, I'm sure I would have preferred, you know, approval, but
Right.
I think that the way we felt about it later on, thinking about it, was like, at least it wasn't indifference; it was a reaction,
Right.
and and that is, if you can't have complete adulation and rock star approval, then let's freak them the fuck out. And that's what we settled for that. And or, you know, maybe at some point would have claimed we preferred that, but I'm that's
Collectively, there's plenty of experiences in a musician's life uh, that are met with indifference, or that
well,
feel like
yeah,
indifference, right?
sure. I mean, but live, I would say we pretty much always got one or the other for a long time. And it was either indifference didn't happen much, and if indifference was happening, then that would be the moment when you might see someone storm off the stage in a frustrated fit,
Right.
rather than you know, people booing. But because booing just kind of like inspired you to then taunt them and bait them more.
Right.
Uh, but at any rate, but the other part of that story was, so we had asked Lisa, the girl at the party, if it was okay if we had our friend's band play, and she's like, "Sure, the more the merrier." And what she didn't realize at that moment was that she had booked a very early Black Flag gig, and so at, at
Really?
her, yeah, so after the kids like booed us, then Black Flag rolled in their, you know, Sound City stacks into her living room, and
Keith,
and the kids were just freaked out by them. They all just like evacuated, and they didn't give them a hard time. They just kind of avoided them, and so we got to just watch Black Flag in the living room, and it was you know.
and that's a Keith Morris era Black Flag.
Yeah, it's Keith Robo. It's the Nervous Breakdown
Right.
single era,
Whew.
so it's that lineup. Yeah.
Uh,
So that was my first show.
incredible.
That's my first show, and then the next show, like a few weeks later, Black Flag at were going to play at a local park, and they had like misrepresented themselves to like the city council or whatever, and at Pollywog Park had like this light jazz in the park series during the summer, and you know, it was, you know, families in this little outdoor amphitheater, you know, with picnics and frisbees, and you know, it was probably Kenny G music, or Czech Mangione would have been the standard fare
Right.
during that series, and I think they gave them like, you know, I don't know, some Fleetwood Mac music. There's some Fleetwood Mac knockoff and claim that was them. And
How'd that go?
so yeah, it didn't go over well. We did fine. I think the people were polite to us. The families were polite. They were
Because you
probably
were
a little,
young.
yeah, and we weren't like so aggressive. I mean, I hate my school. They might have thought, oh, that's cute, these like, or who knows what they thought, or
Right.
maybe, but they weren't booing. They were, yeah, it was, I wouldn't say it was indifference either, because they definitely, well, who knows? I can't remember, I mean, I was electrified and when I think about it, it was all a flash,
Right.
but then during Black Flag, it's now sort of a infamous moment. It was it was a mini riot, but it was more a mini. It was more like a food fight. Like the families were throwing watermelon at what.
It was an entirely different time for punk rock. Punk rock, you know, also was different then. It was different, and then the environment of the world was different. I don't know if maybe younger people. Not that I'm here to like educate people. I was terrified of punk rock. I was a suburban kid, so I would go,
Sure,
"Oh, I'm gonna go over there, and I'll get stabbed or something.
totally. I
I'm
had
gonna
that
get
same
hurt."
fear. I mean, that was the thing. Like my brother was so pushy with me, but I mean, ultimately, I'm lucky. He gave me all this stuff, but at the time, he was really inclusive with me. He wanted his little brother around, as where most 15-year-olds didn't want their stupid 12-year-old brother around. He wanted a partner in crime. Did I lose you?
No, I'm here.
You kind of froze,
Oh,
but
I think is that my phone or your phone freezing?
that's
Or
not my.
ringing.
That's not. Oh, is that my phone?
Is my phone ringing?
We don't have a phone that sounds like that.
Oh, I
That
turned
sounded like a. That sounded like a classic. That must have been your computer having like a phone ring
my phone is turned
hooked
off.
up to your. Is it hooked up to your computer? Maybe
It's plugged into my computer. Yeah. I'm using my
something.
phone as my camera. It's very snazzy.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. Sorry
Uh,
about that.
that's fine. But just on the topic of punk rock scaring you, my only thing I was going to say was like so. Yeah, the first show I went to was an ex Avengers was X supporting the Avengers at the Whiskey A Go Go. And I remember I was really afraid that when we got to the show, I mean, with parents, I was 11 years old, and punk rock was really not had made its way into the suburbs yet. But I really thought that we were going to get like held down on the ground by like Sue Catwoman or whatever, and
Right.
like these few images we had seen of London punk rock and with the safety pins and then the cheek and all that, and those classic images of Sex Pistols gigs. I thought that was they were going to meet us at the door, and even if we had like green food coloring in our hair, they were going to know that was fake
Right.
and that we weren't the real McCoy. We were posers, and that they were going to hold us down and shave our head on the spot and do something horrible to us. And you know, and anyway, so but I learned quickly that at least at that moment it wasn't violent at all. I mean, there was the pogo dance that happened, and which is sort of like a like a seizure kind of spaz attack, but it wasn't really like the pit. It wasn't like the brutal pit of today. It
Right.
wasn't designed to be a contact sport. It was more like
Death.
yeah. It was more like people are being sort of overcome with the excitement, and if you're not really down for that, then go stand somewhere else.
It
But
was like
it's
a
not.
tent revival, some sort of like a tent revival, speaking in tongues.
Sure. Yeah, it was like maybe yeah. It was kind of it was almost like strychnine drinking. Snake charming, snake chanting or whatever kind of. Yeah, it was a possession of sorts. It was a possession, and yeah, it seemed at any rate, but that was a ritual unto itself, and it wasn't. The environment was not hostile to us. In fact, what we found were more like, kind of like nerdy, like what I would later know of as like, like art school freaks.
Right.
And and then there were probably also like a lot of leftovers from the glitter scene in LA, and that had just basically was just now morphing. And anybody that was still into music, they were a part of that LA glitter scene, would have morphed into the punk scene, like
Traded in their boots for some.
Yeah, they would have. Yeah, they would have cut off their shag, their whatever, their sweet shag, their Freddie Mercury look, and they would have, you know, gone more for a Sid Vicious vibe or whatever, and or created their own thing. And so, and then there was also the new wave or punk. That was the other thing that you were learning about at the time, and new wave, seemed more enticing to me because it seemed less scary.
Right.
It seemed, Blondie, that's new wave, or is that punk or new wave? I don't know. But at any rate, so I had been indoctrinated into that world, and I had found that it wasn't scary. We met some people that were like, wow, this is cool. You guys came out, and you're 11. Wow, that's funny. And thought we were curious, and then we just loved the bands. And so from that point on, we're like, okay, we have to do this too.
Going back to like the very first stuff we were talking about, just about being young, probably to a lot of other people, you guys being around and playing music was kind of novel, but to you guys, it probably was the furthest thing from novel, right? There was no novelty to what you were doing. You were into it. You were there as much as anyone. And
well, I mean, yeah,
you said you wanted to grow up fast. You grew up fast, and you did you feel like a pressure to sort of to present yourself in a more mature way, or to do more older teenage or grown up things as a young kid because of that?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was very affected by the peer pressure, and but I was caught between worlds. It was a very confusing time because, the punk rock scene was very peer pressury. It was all about authenticity, and people were electing to make themselves social outcasts through the music they liked and the clothes they wore, and the way they fashioned their hair or whatever. And only prior to that, I had, only recently, just before that, I was really into stuff that was actually quite popular or considered, if something you would kind of have a higher status in your school environment for having gone to a Kiss concert or something. And or like I saw Kiss when I was 8 years old at the Forum, and on their first Alive album. And and I was definitely, I was very aware of the fact. I mean, this was novel in the sense that, like, I was very aware that I was probably the only 8-year-old at the Forum that night, or at least that wasn't the kid of someone in the band. And and that so I felt special because of that. And because this is years before, or at least a couple of years before they went disco and had 8-year-olds had that be like their main audience. Their demographic was still cool teenagers on the first Alive album. And so I went to school, so I would have been like in 4th grade or outside 3rd grade maybe. But all through elementary school, I saw Zeppelin as well when I was 10. Wow. And and it's back to having an older brother. But these are things that kids were either just not know about. Kids in my age group either didn't know about it, or if they did, they were kind of like, whoa, that's really advanced that you went to that concert. And, they might have been a little freaked out by it, but it was definitely not considered, um, they had uh, the focus of anyone's disgust. I was the focus of either admiration or I freaked people out a little bit. And, but then when the punk rock thing happened, my peer group were really kind of like, whoa, okay, that's too far. Most kids stopped talking to me by 7th grade. And like that summer between 6th and 7th grade is where I started, I transitioned and we started playing shows. The very exact moment that my son is in right now. And I went to a new school for 7th grade. It was the beginning of my junior high, and it was intense. So I was very much like, at least I felt that way. I had gone from being well liked in 6th grade and through all my elementary years till suddenly a bit of a pariah, and like people were freaked out by me in 7th grade. But then outside of school, I had this social life that was from 15-year-olds to 25-year-olds or 30-year-olds. And it was super fun and really exciting. I was playing gigs. I was playing, opening for the Germs, opening for the Bags, like my favorite bands.
Wow.
But I was doing it often on a school night, and it was stressful. It was often like, oh fuck, will my parents let me go? Will they let me go? Can I get home early enough to, where school's not gonna be a nightmare tomorrow? Just stuff like that.
I mean, it's already a really difficult time in the development of a young person, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Early teen years, all the way up till 25. I mean, I didn't know my ass from a hole in the ground, really. I think I only.
But you've got it all. You've got it figured out now.
I think I found my ass last year. Yeah.
Congratulations. Tell me where they are. I'm still looking.
Thank you so much. I'm a success story. But how did your parents feel about what you and your brother were up to? Were they super supportive, or was there hesitation? Were they like, well, if you do this, then you can that?
Yeah, it was constant bartering. I mean, they were supportive in the sense that, yeah, they took us to shows. I mean, they didn't go to the show. They would wait in the car outside. And like, yeah, at the Whiskey A Go Go. But we were like, so we grew up in Hawthorne. That's like near LAX.
They'd park out on Sunset and just like wait for you?
There was an Arco station across the street. I think it's still there,
Yeah.
AM PM. And then their 1969 Toyota Corona, which is a great little 4-door.
I had
very boxy. You had a Corona?
I had a 71.
71 Corona. Wow.
Right.
Incredible. Yeah, my parents had a 69 Corona with with a faux leather top.
Wow.
And yeah, it was real fancy. It looked like a Japanese taxi. I don't know if you've ever seen the taxi cabs in Tokyo, but that's I always think that's what they look like. But yeah, they sat in that car and waited for us because they would at the Whiskey. They always had early shows. They would do two shows a night, and it's kind of a leftover from the 70s and 60s traditions of like a residency, 2 shows a night, regardless of how tickets sold. And yeah, we saw the Runaways.
Wow.
We saw like it was the very last lineup of the Runaways. But yeah, we'd always
That was inspiring for you guys, right?
What's that?
That was an inspiration for you guys.
Definitely, yeah, because they were teenagers in the mid 70s, and we got those records because they were in Circus Magazine and stuff. We learned about them, and they were awesome, and they were. And it says on the back cover of the first album, like, Joan Jett, 16,
Right.
Lita Ford, 17. And, I might have been 10 or something, but it was still like, whoa, okay, that's like our friends' older sisters. They're
not grown-ups.
badass. What's that?
You're not grown-ups.
Yeah, they were still teenagers, and they were competing with like Kiss and whoever, and so we loved the Runaways, and we were also, not freaked out by chicks playing guitars. We were excited by it, and at any rate, so yeah, and they were playing nightclub. We've learned later, like they're because even though they were in the pages of Circus magazine, we had learned that there were okay. So there's those arena shows, but then there's these little places that are like on the other side of the hills over there, up there, and on a on the rare clear day in LA, you could actually see the Hollywood sign from the second, like a second story building in our town. Like we would skateboard in the parking structure of a bank near our house, and on the top floor you could see the Hollywood sign on a rare clear day, and the air quality is better now in the unleaded gas era. But at any rate, so yeah, but I'm sorry, you asked me a question about my peer group and did I feel peer pressure. I just want to say that like I felt that I was getting tugged all over the place. So seventh grade was a bit of a nightmare in terms of like it was the best of times, worst of times. I was
Sure.
playing my first shows, having these incredible experiences. Like you were saying, you'd already tried everything by the time you were 12. I was trying those things too,
Right.
and but then I was also trying to um, just keep my head down and get through my day at school. But I wasn't. It wasn't easy. Kids were pretty rough on me.
I mean, there's a pretty solid chance seventh grade is the best of times and worst of times for kids that aren't punks, even.
Yeah, and not to make and not to like be not to try to one up everybody, but
Sure.
I think of mine was sort of like that on steroids.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I am for the time and for what you're doing and everything. It's like,
It was bizarre. I felt a lot of pressure, and I also didn't really feel like I could talk about that anybody understood, um, because also the punk rock thing was just to be like, I don't care what you think, you know,
right.
or I'm authentic. I'm not a poser, like if I, you would you would prove how you were not a phony by like doing something permanent to your hair, changing the color of it. And nowadays that's no big deal. Like I take my kid to school, half the kids have purple hair. It's like
Right.
very standard kind of form of expression. But at the time it was enough to like get you beat up,
Sure.
and or whatever, or just see to it that you didn't have any friends, or you had like a friend.
No, it was quite safe. By the time I dyed my hair the first time, it was quite safe to do. It was like
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's like fun.
1993 was the first time I did it. And
Yeah, that sounds like fun. Well, yeah, what's that? I mean, like in '76 or something, it's the equivalent of like my brother got a fucking, I don't know. I think it was sort of like I think it was probably more of like a Stevie Nicks trip, but he got like a Peter Frampton perm when he was in eighth grade.
right.
Yeah, he was in eighth grade, like in '75 or something. And he got a perm at the mall.
That was a thing though back then.
Yeah, it was totally legit. It was totally legit, and it would have been the equivalent of like you dyeing your hair in '93.
Right.
Like it wasn't considered like fucking perm fag or whatever. It was just like
Dyeing your hair in 79 or
cool.
80 was the equivalent of getting a face tattoo in 1993.
Exactly. Exactly.
And now,
Where's the
like your
environment?
dog walkers got face tattoos.
Yeah, exactly. Which still shocks me. I still like, you know, I hope you're not Jewish because you won't be able to be buried in a Jewish cemetery.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. It's crazy. Not to drag back on your son, but have you peer identity, like identifying with the peer group, was used to be such an important thing, and there were real, very defining things that you would attach yourself to, right? Um,
Sure.
you were a punk or you were a metal or then there was crossover. I found myself somewhere in there, right? But
Sure.
uh, is that kind of thing still happen, or is it a lot of blending?
I don't know. I haven't met his friends yet, his new friends yet. He's just started like a month ago, and since it's COVID, we can't volunteer in class. So I haven't met any of his friends.
Right.
And I see skateboards at school. He's like in a really groovy, hippie, progressive school. So the kids
Right.
are like, I saw a few goth girls.
Right.
So there's goth chicks. I know that.
So
They're,
there's some like clove cigarette smoke in your future.
I hope not, because I don't have to be seduced into that world like I was. But
So it's not going
it
to be
takes,
weird when like weird long-haired dad shows up to volunteer in class after COVID. It's like
well,
that's a
we
kind of
won't.
cool where
I don't know. We'll see. It might be a whole new world. It's new kids, and he's changing so much. But I have to assume that yeah, these things are kids are a lot of. I think kids, because I've been asking him actually. I've been driving home from school. I suddenly get the daily download,
right.
and his uncle is picking him up today so we could do this
Oh, hey,
podcast. But his uncle's really good at getting I mean, he was excited about getting the download. So Jeff hopefully will give me a lot of information. But I was asking, like, well, what do your friends like to do, like outside of school? Like, are they into video games? Are they into mute? Does music come up much? Um, and he's been kind of holding back, but he did mention that they do like skateboards, but he doesn't like to skateboard. He wants to tell me he doesn't like to skateboard. He's a bit of a my reaction to my childhood, although I'm so grateful for all I've got bragging rights forever, at least in the rock world,
sure.
which is really the gift my brother gave me on a lot of levels. But at the same time, I would say I don't know why I was in such a rush. And with my kid, both my wife and I have been like, there is no rush. So, and it seems like he's taken to that.
No,
So
that's good. That's you guys are responsible parents.
yeah, maybe so. I hope so, because he doesn't need to go to the mall yet with his friends. He doesn't. He seems like he doesn't want to be in a peer pressured situation yet.
Yeah.
So I don't know if these kids are I don't know if they're smoking weed or cigarettes. I don't know if anyone's experimenting with like ecstasy or whatever. But
they're doing yoga and they're like transcendental meditation probably. Like they
well, it's true. His school's a real hippie fest, and they actually has a yoga class.
Oh, that's awesome.
I know.
Man, I wish there was a yoga class in my school.
I know. I mean, it's like he's really taking to the school also, which we're really grateful about. But once again, I don't know what the peer groups are like. I don't know but I just have to assume that this is long before us. It's going to be going on long after us that
Right.
that kids, use these different, these signifiers that we pick up in popular culture to define how they feel about themselves. And while words are still hard to put together, you can wear something that will say it for you, I suppose, or
Words are still hard to put together.
Yeah. As I was saying that sentence, I was hoping I could finish it.
Here's something. So here's something that strikes me that do you consider yourself a bass player or a bassist?
Yeah, I don't know. Is there a big difference?
I don't know. I think so. I mean,
So how do you define the difference? As a bassist, like someone that reads music or something?
no, but someone that is maybe, musical.
It's an ideology,
Maybe
bassism.
Yeah, some kind of, it's like that's like
But up here,
no, like percussion,
Weather Report,
drummer.
Jaco Pastoria.
No, not like that. But I would consider you a bassist, like a real craftsman or an artist on the bass. I guess There you go. Like maybe a bassist is someone who uses the bass for their art, and a bass player is a craft person.
Bass player is a craft person.
Maybe so. I would consider you a bassist, and listening back through your body of work, it seems like you gravitated towards being very musical and not like who's the guy in ACDC, and he's amazing.
Oh, yeah. I forget, but like
Cliff.
tone.
Yeah. Like you're not pedaling the root, and that's it. You know, McCartney is a bassist.
And then a bass player is a.
Let
What do
me
you mean? What
let
do you
me
mean
the bass
craftsman?
player.
Because I think of that. I think of McCartney as a craftsman. That's like a
Maybe I'm. See, I told you.
bass.
I'm not,
Well, but are you sort of seeing the difference between like the Sid Vicious archetype, where it's like, oh, the guy who looks good, but we don't care if he can play it all.
right. Yeah.
He's got
Yeah.
a great image, and we don't really care about that role. They just got to hold down some kind of root note, and then there's the people who want to take it on as their creative contribution.
Yeah. I mean, there's bass noodlers. They're bassists on another level. They're
It's
like
a
lead
real
guitar.
noodly.
Oh
It's
yeah.
a very noodly culture. Like that, if you look up stuff online, there's
Uh,
all the people that are just so. I guess it's like a fusion thing, or
just, go to walk through Nam at any bass booth, and it's just like a
yeah. I
right.
mean, I feel a little bitter that it's like, am I just bitter that because I don't like it, But
No. I mean, there are a lot of things I don't like that you know.
but it's the main representation of the instrument that I have spent so much time with in my life. It's like that kind of yeah, I don't know, is that Stanley Jordan? I don't know who that is. What is
Yeah. Uh, Maybe it's Stanley Jordan. It's definitely Jocko. You know that kind of thing.
Chaka? Then Flea made it really mainstream to be a popper, doing the slapping. But I do like slapping and popping, but in like the '60s sense. Like I like well, it's more just popping, I guess. I like the guy from Sly and the Family Stone.
Oh, so he invented it, man.
Yeah, and I can't believe I'm forgetting his name right now.
It's not Vernon. He was in he's
No, it's
in Fire. Uh,
I'm just having a brain freeze. I definitely know his name,
I mean,
but he was also doing it on flat wound strings,
right.
which has got a whole other thing. He's doing it on like a weird, well, probably many instruments, but like thank you for letting me be myself. That's I think that's one of those weird Rickenbacker hollow bodies.
Oh, really?
Yeah, with flat wound strings. Don't count.
It sounds
I'd
so
like to
cool.
thank you for letting me. Yeah, it sounds amazing.
Yeah, and like nothing sounded like that before that recording.
Yeah, he just came up with that, and I'm gonna have to look this up really fast.
It was the funk on the deepest level. It was.
It's so good. Yeah.
But I guess where I was headed with that is it felt like you were developing your style from the word go, and
Larry Graham.
Larry Graham, thank you.
Except Larry Graham. Like
Thank
I like that kind of popping and
Sure.
that kind of funk is amazing. And then obviously James Jamerson and the whole like the soul music of the '60s and early '70s. Those bass players are incredible. But yeah, I mean, from an early on, my brother was always encouraging me to be flashy. We both liked it. I mean, like we weren't necessarily into shredding guitarists, but I mean, sure, we liked Jimmy Page and stuff, but like by the time we got into punk, it was like, Johnny Ramone was perfectly fine.
Sure.
But why don't we try to Jeff pushed me into being the shredder. He wanted me to be I don't know, he just encouraged it and it was cool, because it's fun to be encouraged. And
Even
yeah,
on
I
those
love that.
recordings, it doesn't seem overbearing. It feels like appropriate fills and flourishes, like melodic.
I was trying. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't necessarily gifted at shredding or anything. I wasn't doing bass hammer-ons or Billy Sheehan style.
I will before I forget, I do want to tell you you were responsible for one of my bass purchases, which it didn't
Oh, wow.
unfortunately didn't stick around, and you were responsible for one of the great bass haunts in my life, which once a month I'll go on a neurotic tear across the internet trying to find a Warlock
Fun.
bass.
Oh, Warlock.
Will you tell me how you came to? I
Oh,
typically don't
man.
focus on like gear and stuff, but because you have had that effect on me as a bassist, I
Okay.
would love to hear that story. The other one is the Thunderbird.
Oh, right. Cool. Wait, which one do you deny you don't have either one
The th-
anymore? Or
I got a Thunderbird uh and I didn't end up. Well, I wasn't playing, and so it went away. I can get another Thunderbird.
right, yeah, they're around.
I do have a Fender Bird now, which is really great. Like,
Oh, I don't know that. It's a guitar or a bass.
oh, it's a bass. It's a Thunderbird body with a Fender neck.
Wow. Is that so? Is a Frankenstein or someone makes that
Someone
or?
made it for me, but Entwistle did that famously.
Oh yeah, that sounds like I'd seen that before. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, but
Uh,
the Warlock, how it seems like an unlikely instrument.
mm,
How,
for me to have.
yeah, how did that one come about, and what's your attachment to it?
Oh yeah. Well, I'm the only owner of that particular bass. I bought it new. It's the only. It's one of the very few new instruments I've ever had in my life.
Really?
And yeah, and I got it in 1984. So you know, it's at a it's that prime original, you know, through the neck, all one piece
U.S.,
kind
New
of,
Jersey,
yeah, BC
L-
Rich. That's considered, the holy grail of BC Rich. I think I got an 84, so that might have been like people might have already think that's the cutoff or something. I don't know, but it was of that original era, and yeah, I was 16 maybe, and I didn't deserve it. My parents, my dad's a welder. I was not born with a silver spoon in my mouth. But they, but they were very supportive, and I begged and begged, and I probably came up with some cash, or probably maybe they split it with me or something. I'd like to think. I'm not sure, but yeah, I became obsessed with it, and it was like. Yeah, and I wasn't like into Motley Crue, but Nikki Sixx had one, and I thought like, fuck, that's amazing. And
he always looked cool too, whether you
I
liked him.
loved them.
He was a cool
Yeah,
looking fucker.
yeah, and my brother and I both got BC Riches at the same time. He bought a secondhand Mockingbird that was beautiful. It's like a early '80s Mockingbird white pearl, like a sort of pearlescent.
Yeah.
Um, it was, beautiful, like, original era. And then I got that. And then mine was born a single pickup, but then, I always turned everything into a Frankenstein. I probably like messed it up or something, but I put a second pickup in it. And, but it's bitching. It sounds amazing. I had it done, by a real luthier. But you can tell it's not original because the double pickup ones have a different headstock. Actually, have a cooler headstock. The ones that were born made stock with two pickups have like a sort of like a T-bird headstock, the four on a side,
Right.
and that's what Nikki Sixx had. But they were like twice as much, and
Which headstock is you have one,
mine's two a side.
two, and
It's just a
two.
sort of standard, yeah, two and two, and so it is. So if you go on those BC Rich chat boards where people are pretty, yeah, I don't know how to characterize them in a polite way, but
Cork
they're
sniffy.
not
they're,
they're
like,
not so friendly. What's that?
they're sniffing corks.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they're really, yeah. I was definitely not gonna get any props for my instrument, which I thought was very cool. It's like,
Sure.
but the, but yeah, at any rate, but yeah, because I went on those pages and the like since I started, because I had that bass in the like in the I used it. I got an '84. I used it for a couple of years. Then I kind of got put under the bed. And then I pulled it out again in the late '80s. But then I had some producer talk it out of my hands and made me use like a Sadowski or something, some
Right.
like fancy studio bass. And then it stayed under. It wasn't until I was playing with the Melvins that I managed to work it back into rotation. And once that happened, then I was like, and I'm doing it in the era of social media. So I got all these photos that were like, that looked pretty terrific with the Warlock. And so I started posting them to try to ingratiate myself to the world of BC Rich. And people were really not into it. Yeah. And then I also learned that it was very political at BC Rich because I think it changed hands several times, and there was some falling out between owners and people, and so there were factions. I had stepped into this landmine of like it was like Shia and Sunni Muslims or something.
Right.
It was like I have no idea what's going on. There's these tribes. It was a lesson in tribalism.
I haven't been down any rabbit holes like that where I got where I've been.
With BC Rich in particular, or any guitar company.
Oh, I've been down rabbit holes with guitar companies and bass companies and whatnot.
Well, I was just, I thought, oh, well, since I'm close enough to Buzz Osborne, maybe someone will want to like, shower me with some kind of attention and maybe a guitar on a good price or so. I have no idea. And, it's one of those signs of, it's a childhood fantasy to, it still seems like, well, that's a sign of success.
You could get a signature Warlock bass.
Or if nothing else, it's like someone that makes them is going to pay me a bunch of attention and want to, maybe
an ad or something like, look at this.
What's that?
Look at this. The guy from the Melvins holding the thing, and here you can get one over here.
Sure. I mean, it seems like it's not completely unbelievable.
Right.
But I sort of tried to ingratiate myself into their community, and
like fuck off.
people. I mean, I thought I did it tastefully, but with humor and a sense of self-deprecating fun.
I mean, here's the thing. You are an absolute expert stage presenter. You are you are an incredible performer, and obviously you're paying attention and you give a shit. And I don't know if that's because you saw Kiss and you saw you were into whatever. I don't know, maybe you were into Queen. Like
Sure.
Everyone was into Queen in the 70s, right? And like those guys they didn't, they put on a show. They looked sharp on stage. Like you're up there performing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've always, the Kiss show being the first time I went to a rock concert. Yeah, I mean, it definitely had an effect. Yeah, the idea that that it's a performance, and that I always liked the idea of of the musician being some kind of other, like, tuned into different channels or something. Ziggy Stardust, I love that stuff. I mean, I grew up with that fantasy, and so it was always sort of fun to it's always been interesting for me. I don't know, anything I've ever loved is into the punk rock thing too. I like the bands, I like the drums. I mean, Darby Crash was trying to create some sort of character. He was obsessed with Ziggy Stardust too, and so it was the next progression. And yeah, so but just to go back to you know me approaching the community that is BC Rich, I did sort of think, like, look at these pictures, I mean, if you're trying to grab people's
I look sharp.
attention
I
with your
got a suit
guitar,
on. I
what's it?
got a suit on. I look cool. I'm on a
Yeah,
stage. I'm playing a show. I'm not playing in my bedroom like everyone else in the chat room.
yeah. Well, I remember when I did this one post on Instagram where I was, and I don't have a huge network. I got my little whatever, 14,000 something people or whatever, but whatever. It's not 1,000 people, and so I did some post where I tagged BC Rich, and I had pictures where I looked really evil, like that is very fitting with your. And then I had these other ones where I'm like pouting, like, oh, like I'm in ecstasy,
Right.
like I'm Ace Frehley with a tone knob or something, and in ecstasy and I made some comment about like evil and sexy. Come on,
Oh,
like
yeah.
like I was trying to find that sweet spot between you know whatever Blackie Lawless and Lita Ford or something, but with a cooler punk rock history,
Right.
and just saying like maybe this is
Got a cool punk rock history.
yeah, or whatever, I don't know. I have no idea. So I'm the kind of thing where it's like, if you're into it, then you're pretty into it. But chances are you're not into it. But if you are, you're pretty into it. So uh, it seemed worth my effort. But it's a weird deal trying to promote yourself. For me, it's a weird deal. I go between like I'll eat a bunch of I'll have some pastries and coffee, and I'll do some mad wild post, and then later on I'm like, oh, I hate
Right.
myself. I feel so dirty.
It's the social media thing is weird, and
It's
seeing
weird.
it, what it has done is it has turned everyone into a pub, like some sort of business analytics expert, where they're like, oh well, I,
Yeah,
I can't post during at this
yeah,
hour because of optics.
yeah.
Well,
Your average soccer mom is concerned about her demographic.
if I used the word optic 20 years ago, I was talking about my eyeglasses. I don't optics and analytics. It's like that's what sports analysts they're talking about that stuff, not me. Yeah,
you know,
but it's a weird world.
I guess if we're all doing it, then But yeah, I go through phases though. Like I've kind of been off for a while, and I figure I'll be touring again next year, and I'll dive back in. But I mean, I've been doing a little stuff, but I've been I've my time, whatever, my I've been not very prolific, and and that's actually whatever it is, what it is. It's a part of life now, and I think that I am for some reason I maybe it's because, as now I'm 54 and I've been doing this since I was 11, so I am like 43 years.
That's incredible. It's
most
really, it's
people that are
almost
in their
unbelievable.
most people that can claim like 40 years in any career are about to retire, and they're like pushing 70 or something, and so um at any rate, but my point is uh sometimes I start to feel a little bit like, dude, you're like, just I don't know, get a life or so. I don't know.
Well, what you got
Whatever.
to do
It's
something
all. I
to
shouldn't
amuse
take myself
yourself.
seriously. I don't take myself that seriously. It's fine.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great way to approach not only social media but life, right?
Well, ultimately, yeah, I think you have to, because if you take everything so seriously, then Well, then the stuff that really you should take seriously is you're numb. It doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
But then also, it's just it's way too, especially showbiz. There's so many opportunities to feel bad.
Right.
There's so many opportunities to be rejected and to be or to feel like your success is not good enough or some,
Because
crazy shit.
it's measured versus so many other things, right?
Sure, yeah, and as a society, I guess we kind of encourage your craziness to come out, because it seems to fuel it, you know. But like make it fuel your ambition or something. But I think I'm getting better at not of being able to ride that, like try really hard, but then let it go when I need to let it go.
Have there, I mean, this is a ridiculous question, but surely, I mean, it happens to me multiple times a day. So I imagine that to most people, it must at least occur to them occasionally. Were there times over the last 43 years where you're like, I can't fucking do this anymore? I'm done. And did you ever actually seriously consider stopping?
Well, I did for times, but I never stopped music. I just stopped. Like Red Kross went on hiatus in like '98,
Right.
and before I even really knew the word hiatus, I suppose. But we just kind of stopped doing stuff, and that lasted for like 9 years. And then during that time, I went to school, I studied music, and and then I started producing more, and I started thinking, because it was right before the internet kind of took hold, and I it was just turned 31, and I was coming out of this phase, coming out of this 20-year bid to break through to the mainstream,
Right.
and 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 I really thought that youth was a bigger part of my identity than it needed to be. I didn't understand. I kind of really bought into that, and I mean, you were asking me earlier if I thought of myself as novelty. I don't think I thought of myself as novelty because I was very serious about it. It wasn't like a hit and run thing, but we definitely also thought that it was something that made us special. And just like the way the Runaways and like had announced their ages on the back cover of their first album, we too marketed ourselves like that. I mean, my brother used to call our favorite bands. We'd find our favorite bands' numbers in the Yelp white pages. We used to call X and the Dickies, and I don't know how Jeff got Leonard Graves' number, but he would literally call information and ask for Penelope Houston in San Francisco or whatever, and for the Avengers. And then we would call these people and say, Jeff would call and say, "Yeah, I have this band. Can we open for you? My little brother's in it. He's 11 years old." Like we were pushing that out there. We even put an ad in Slash magazine in 1979 that like announced us, the tourist, with the amazing Steven, 11-year-old bass player.
Right.
And it was like, but it's where people like really harsh the Runaways for having Kim Fowley behind them. We totally took a cue from his playbook, and we were doing that for ourselves. And
Do you think you guys maybe didn't catch heat because you were boys?
probably, well, I mean, definitely the fact that, well, I mean, I don't know if we didn't catch heat. I mean, sure. When Red Kross first started, the very first review we ever got was a bit of a slag, and it was reviewed by Jeffrey Lee Pierce of the Gun Club. He was a journalist before he had a band, and he wrote a review of us in Slash magazine and said he couldn't take a true, because a couple songs I sang, and he said he couldn't take a cherubic 12-year-old writhing on the ground seriously. And I remember saying, like, what does cherubic mean? I asked my friends, and they're like, oh, it's like the little cherubs on a building. They're like, so like I just heard it as like chubby, and I was really sensitive to that. And I was outraged, and I never liked the gun club because of that.
You ever get the opportunity to speak to him?
Well, he's passed away since, but like at the
Did you?
time, what's that?
Did you ever?
Well, I met him back then. He used to hang out at the church with Black Flag's place, and he did some pieces on that scene. And then he reviewed us, and he called me a little cherub rolling around on the ground that he couldn't take seriously. And I thought that was my first time I was spoken about in print, and I took it really hard. And even though it probably reads fine now, also what I see it now also is like his frustrated self-hatred and screaming at his inner child, who was definitely a little 12-year-old, chubby 12-year-old rolling around on the ground. He was probably the little fucker can do it. Why can't I? But he did it soon after. But he did and had a lot of success with it, or local underground success with it. But but yeah, we did catch a little slack. But I think that, but as terms of like, yeah, I mean, like I very much, the Go-Go's nowadays, they talk about, you know, the battles they had being taken seriously by male musicians. And I totally believe that 100%. And,
Yeah.
um,
There's
and
nothing to convince me otherwise.
yeah, right. And I think that, so, I mean, because I used to know what it was like walking into a guitar store until last year, probably even like always like just such attitude coming off the staff. Like, can I try that guitar? And they're like, no, we don't want fingerprints on the guitars. It's like,
Hey, or
and treating.
smear on here. Get out of here, kid.
But then like with girls, I think it was even more intense. It was like, what is this for your boyfriend? And that whole kind of attitude was probably really hard to deal with. And it still, exists and whatever. But I'm sure I hope it's much less now. But I think that for us, but just back to the whole idea of so by the time I was turning 30 and 31, Red Kross had gone this whole trajectory of constantly always just slowly getting to the next sort of some kind of milestone of like, selling out nightclubs. Okay, now we got a new record deal, or now it's a big record deal, and now it's blah blah blah. But by the 98 and turning 31, we kind of had been our second major label deal, and we'd finally made two records for the same label. And the second record did a little less, not as good as the first record, and it was like, this is going to be really hard now. And the internet hadn't quite shown us what it was going to be. We didn't know. So this is 3 years before Friendster even, and much less MySpace. So we didn't know that you don't need the gatekeepers like you once did to. And we were really in that very privileged position that like people like the Melvins were able to benefit from, where they had a marketing machine behind them with Atlantic Records, and then you're able to go like, okay, thank you very much, and we're now going to take that mailing list and go directly to those people, and maybe we're not aiming to compete with our friend that became a superstar, but we don't need to now, because if you can get a much bigger piece of a much smaller pie, you're fine.
You're probably
And
doing better than you were before.
you're way better because you don't have the pressure to like, keep a multinational corporation in fancy meals
High rise.
for
Yeah.
high rises. And all you have to do is just like make your music and please a small group of people.
I remember it felt like a lightning bolt struck me when I realized there were many ways to sustain a life as a musician. And they don't all include digging a ditch, which is the other thing I'm qualified to do.
Well, I just always assumed, I kind of bought the And I don't know if anybody ever spelled it out to me in any express terms or whatever, but I just assumed like, oh, right. So you either pick the winning lottery ticket and it happens, or you're flipping burgers. There's one of the two.
Yeah, that's what we call a working musician, right?
Yeah.
Working
Yeah.
job.
Yeah. And you know, but I was lucky enough to be born in Los Angeles. So I was always kind of like, I didn't have to go through the hardships of like moving to a bigger town to try to like get the attention of an industry. Um, but you know, not everybody from Los Angeles got the attention of the industry either. You know, I mean, we were tenacious and lucky and all those different things. But yeah, I didn't know, and it wasn't. But prior to the internet, you had to be really pretty savvy, like even college educated, I would think, or something, to know like, oh, I can just make my own relationship with record distributors, and I can make my own label, and that whole thing seemed really of no interest to me. And the only people I knew doing that were my friends in Black Flag, who actually had graduated from, you know, UCLA or whatever, and were, you know, kind of smart business people, or none of smart business people, because the way that all turned out, but had the opportunity to be very smart business people. What's that?
It was at least there was a vision.
There was a vision, and there was a vision, and there was some business know-how of how to start something.
Uh, you've played with a lot of folks outside of Red Kross, including Melvins. Was it weird the first time you went and did that, and you were doing music without your brother? Like, was there an element of learning how to communicate with people outside of that bubble?
Yeah, definitely. Sure. I mean, I kind of always, between my brother and me, I would be the one that I would jam, sit in with other people. And I thought of you know, I felt pretty confident as a, you know, rock musician that could play amongst other rock musicians. But between the two of us, I'm more likely to go jam on someone's record. But actually, yeah, after the band, and suddenly I didn't realize how insulated I was with the comfort of having not just your own band, but a world with your older brother too.
Right.
And that other people were conforming to. I didn't know how much other people were conforming to our environment until I had to go do it in other people's environments. And it wasn't always easy for me. And
It's like
I mean, I tried out.
Almost, there's almost a different language in every room, right?
Yeah, it's a real cultural experience, and it definitely is. And people have, you know, different things are valued, priorities are different, and you know, anything from whatever. Some people are, you know, militant vegans, and some people are, you know, militant progressives, and some people are the other opposite of that, and some people don't want to talk about any, you know, what their interests are. You know, I mean, just what the interests are of the room. You know, some people are obsessed with how the world works and who has the power, and some people are just into TV. My band, we were just into TV. You know, we were just into like, my brother would, you know, like to make some absurd reference to Charlene Tilton or something, you know, whenever possible, and it's a lot of fun. You know, and then if your whole thing was about politics, you were kind of a bummer. Was his sort of thing. But
how did the Melvins opportunity come together?
Well, those guys I had known since the '90s, and Buzz moved to LA in early '90s, and we had people in common. Our friend Bill Bartell, who had a band called White Flag. He's this real weirdo who's now deceased. But Bill, I think Bill was friends with Sean Lennon somehow. We had this side project band called the Tater Tots I had with Bill, and it was the Tater Tots were all about holding it was about baiting Beatles fans by holding Yoko Ono in high esteem and doing Yoko Ono covers. And
You guys did?
what's that?
You guys did Yoko Ono covers?
Yeah, we did records that were like dedicated to Yoko and Linda and also any just weird kind of artifact that we thought was interesting. This guy Bill would actually, he would sort of take common interests that we had with him, and then he was obsessive enough to actually make these things happen. And so he would take it to the level of getting to know Sean Lennon even.
I have an
And
unpopular opinion of Yoko Ono. I think she's incredible.
well, then you would like the Tater Tots. You should look up the Tater Tots.
Uh, I don't always think that her presence was appropriate in certain performances, but I think that in and of herself, I think she's pretty
Oh
rad.
yeah, she's amazing, and I totally get why John was so enamored with her. And but yeah, I mean, it's weird to see Let It Be and her sitting there on the next. Like, what do you? I mean, it must have been so weird to be George Harrison. Like you already have a hard enough time.
Performance is
Like,
kind of like
what's that?
the Chuck Berry performance, though. That's kind of the one, right?
Which one? Which Chuck Berry performance?
Uh, the band, John and
Oh,
Yoko are backing up Chuck Berry.
okay, yeah. Actually, I haven't seen that. Where? What is that in? Is that in?
But it's
Is it in Hail Hail Rock and Roll or something? Or what's?
it no, it might have been the Rock and Roll Circus.
Well, that's John. John, does he? Is that in the Rock and Roll Circus? That John and Yoko are a part of a Chuck Berry's backup band? Well, because I mean, when John does uh, uh, cold. I mean, he does Your Blues with Eric Clapton and Keith Richards
Which is
and Mitch Mitchell, the Dirty Mac or
it's
whatever.
brutal because she's got some hand drums and there's a microphone on it and she's back there and you can just see her getting restless. Like she's like, this is not my thing. Like this is why did you
But she had,
why
but she
did
had no qualms about being put up in that. I mean, you know.
she tore the microphone off the hand drum and started like "Ah, la, 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 la," like doing her thing. And you could just see the look on Chuck's face. He's just like,
Yeah, well, she has a lot. I mean, a lot of audacity there, and people. Well, like the Tater, because one of the things the Tater Tots did is we crashed the Beatle Fest, a battle of the Beatle bands at Beatle Fest in like 1989 or something. It was at a big hotel in Los Angeles, and we got booked on the battle of the Beatle bands. The So sort of the finale, the grand finale of the weekend, which used to be this huge event in Los Angeles, and it was like as big as Comic-Con or whatever, and it was only Beatle nerds, but most of these bands were like really professional, Fab Four sound-alike groups, and we got up there. We were like a 7-piece group, and our friend Jennifer was in a bag, and we were doing "Don't Worry, Kyoko," and she was like, in this bag. And it was back to that. It was back to the 8th grade graduation party, except for it was like 3,000 irate Beatles fans like booing us, and we're down, 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 down. Don't worry, don't worry.
I fucking love that.
Yeah, but so anyways, through that experience, Bill Bartell, also known as Pat Fear of White Flag, he somehow made his way to Sean Lennon. And Yoko even knew about us. At some point, Yoko had said to Sean, or said that she referred to Tater, like, yes, Sean, Tater has always been a fan of your mother's. And anyways, yeah. So, but I can't claim to have, I personally, as a member of Tater Tots, have not made her acquaintance, but Bill did. Yoko, she was great. But how did we get on a Yoko trip? I forgot how we got on that.
I met her once.
Oh yeah, how did that go?
She said, "You're very handsome," and I said, "Thank you."
Awesome. She hit on you.
Kind of hit on me. My wife worked for her until the quarantine stuff happened, COVID stuff. My wife
Oh
worked for him
no.
for 10 years.
Wait, your wife worked with her doing what?
Doing like skincare and makeup stuff for her. My wife's a makeup artist, and so she went to the Dakota every day. Every
Wow.
Yeah, it's incredible, right? Can you even like she saw the white? She's been in the room with the white piano a number of times,
Well,
and
so she was close. So she must became sort of close with Yoko. I mean,
yeah,
that's very intimate.
10 years of up close, intimate.
Wow, 10 years.
Yeah,
So she really was hitting on you. She was trying to see if there's any kind of like
maybe so.
potential there.
Every hey,
she's like, she's like, maybe they swing.
everything's for sale, buddy. I'm a musician. Everything's for sale. We were talking about it because how did we get on Yoko? We got on Yoko because of the tater tots, and because how did
Yeah,
the
I drug us there. I
how,
drug us to
how did
dinner.
the Melvins thing come together? Because we're
Oh, okay, there we go. Okay, so that's a reference. So
supposed to be talking about the record eventually.
yeah, well, so Buzz and Dale had jammed with Ema, Yoko's band, that she did. But Sean did like a power trio that backed her up in like
My been
early '90s.
my friend Timo was in that band.
Yeah, they were great. Yeah, what instrument did Timo play?
He must have played drums in that band, drums or
They were great. Yeah, they were a three-piece. It was just Sean, a bass player, and a drummer. No, it wasn't drums because when I saw them, maybe I could be right. Ema, or it might have just been a Yoko gig. This band might have. When I saw them, it was Russell
Oh,
from the Blues Explosion playing drums,
right.
and Sean, and then one other person. It might have been your friend.
Bass in the band, yeah.
Yeah. Did he ever have a cool guild
Yes.
bass? Does he? Oh, really? Like the weird ironing board, Peter Tork kind of bass?
He's got one of those, and he's got the weird Ibanez with the. He's got one of those Ibanez like looks.
Oh, like you mean like the kit, like the one that I mean, it looks like a jazz bass, but it's got a weird scrolly headstock.
Yeah,
The one that what's Chris Novoselic had one of those.
one of those too. Yeah, yeah. He's got
Um,
weird instruments.
but he's got the weird Thunderbird. It does not like a Gibson Thunderbird, but it looks like an ironing board sort of bass.
Yeah, it looks like something that a wizard would wield.
Yeah, the guild, right?
S300.
Oh yeah, right. Okay, cool. Yeah, I saw him play with Ema, with Yoko,
Yeah,
in like the early '90s because that's what the bass player had at least.
right.
And John and Bill had introduced the Melvins. Sean had been interested in the Melvins because that was the other thing. Bill was just like he's a real kind of like networker, and Sean would have been interested in anybody that knew, Nirvana at the time, and then the Melvins were, or whatever. He was interested in Melvins also. So
Yeah.
Sean was interested in Melvins, and Bill made the whole connection. And I had gone to the Yoko show, and I saw those guys play. I'm not sure if that's the first time. I maybe had already met them, but I bet at least that's when I first started talking to them. That's one of my first memories of them. Um, I'm terrible. I always feel Dale makes me, no one tries to make me feel bad, but I think I'm always a little too distracted because my memories are not great. And those guys seem to have better details.
It was a relationship of years before you actually played with them.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, I've gone down a real long road for a simple question. Yeah. So I knew them in like 93, 94. And then, but then flash forward to many years later, Dale sat in on drums for Off on an Off tour.
All right.
And so like in 2013 or 14, Dale sat in on like a 3-week tour and for Mario Rubalcaba, who couldn't do the tour. And then we started and around that time, they were, I guess that's around the time that the big business guys were planning on striking out on their own again. And so it just was good timing.
Was it those guys have been going for so long and they're such an institution. Was it weird to step in there? I mean, and also not to mention, what was it like to learn? Is there a regimented set list that you guys go out with, or is it like are there audibles called? Because I would probably hang myself if I had to learn the entire body of Melvin's work.
Oh yeah, Buzz is really efficient. He likes efficiency. He's not like I played in Beck's band briefly, and Beck made us learn like 50 songs, and then he didn't write the set list until that night.
Right.
So it's just harsh, because you're trying to get everything like arena ready, and then um, but you really only needed 15 songs, and he maybe swapped out five during the 6 months or something, but it was like,
Rehearsed them at sound check if he really wanted to do it.
yeah, but it was just like whatever. But I was game, because I loved those records and it was fun.
Yeah.
And I was hoping I was going to do more, but with Melvins, it was definitely like Buzz. He knew what songs he wanted to play for that tour, but and they gave me enough time, and he was really patient because I wasn't used to stuff being in odd times, and that was new for me to have like. Well, I later learned like, oh, there's just a bar of three thrown in. This is that just happened. There's just one bar of three or five or something that happened, and I'm like, what is this? Is this like, are we in 9/10 right now? What is this? I have no idea. And I'd ask him Buzz, and then he'd be like, I don't know. This is how I play it. And he's definitely not a counter. He's not going to give you any shortcut, but he'll be very, very patient. He'll play it for you over and over and over, and no eye rolling. And there's no, at least with me, it's always very, very patient and friendly. And then Dale speaks, and not that I'm all that theory based, but I did go to school at some point and I learned some theory just so I could speak it with musicians as a producer in case they spoke that.
Right.
And mostly for that reason. And Dale definitely can. Yeah, he's been playing with Buzz all these years. He's had to learn how to, count it if you need it, or just, I also learned like, oh right, okay, so when we're about to have an off, when we're about to not land, when one is suddenly going to be disguised, the snare might double up. You might hit a snare where you think there's going to be a kick drum.
Right.
And like, oh, now, okay, right, I got it. Because suddenly it started to sound like an oompa to me, and I didn't know what the fuck was going on, And it's like, oh no, and I just don't come from that. I don't, I mean, I think that we intersect on a lot of music, but in terms of, weird time signatures, I had never really followed any groups that were based in that, or
Right.
that was a big part of it, so, but I mean, it's fun, it's great. Now that shit comes a lot easier to me, but it's still not second nature, but I've just found the little tricks a little bit more to like figure out how to figure out where one is when it's being disguised.
The new record is acoustic.
Well, which record? The acoustic one? Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Melvin's record is an acoustic record, which I think probably no real Melvins fans will be surprised. I've seen Buzz do it acoustic,
Yeah.
but for whatever reason, I was like, never occurred to me that there would be a full on acoustic Melvins record, but the tiny bits that have been out make perfect sense because at the core, I mean, you hear this all the time, like, well, a good song is a good song, and that's that, right?
Yeah. I mean, and also the Melvins, there's Buzz and Dale pride themselves on like, not being thrown off by anything. Basically, any obstacle, they invite it. Like most bands, you know, would be like if they show up to a gig where they were supposed to be backline and all there was gorilla stacks, they're going to be super freaked out. And those guys are just like, oh, it's fine. What? It's fine. We'll make it work. Yeah, like they pride themselves on that kind of shit at this point. So, which that's been a challenge for me because I'm all like, okay, yeah, okay. I can't because I tend to rely. I mean, I get comfortable with something, and then I'm like, don't fuck with my this. I'm used to this, and I get anxious, and they don't. They would be like, okay, if I start asking for, can I get some more something in the monitor? Okay, because I felt like I needed it or I was going to mess up otherwise. And, I mean, it's, in other words, yeah. But so the idea of making the acoustic lineup work for them, they're just immediately, without even thinking about it, say, of course, it's fine, nothing. Yeah, we can make it happen.
Are they otherwise straight renditions of Melvin's catalog songs, or are there some arrangement?
Mostly in the vocals. There's lots of vocal stuff that we wouldn't necessarily have heard on the other recordings, arrangement wise. Like I remember Buzz was saying a lot when we were recording it, like just wanting to focus on the vocal harmonies and stuff. And but I mean, we did this. It was the first thing we did during lockdown. So once it was okay to get into a space with people, or that everyone felt comfortable, it was the first thing we did. And that was coming off of a lot of touring in the last 4 years. So, I hadn't learned all that. I mean, so like you asked about when I first played with them, I probably learned a few extra songs, but basically I learned a set list. But then we did 4 or 5 more tours and I learned a new set list each time. So by that point, I'd been playing with them for like 5 years, and there was about, I don't know how many discs this record is. It's quite a few. It's, what is it? Like, how many songs? Do you know? I should know. It's like 40 songs or something crazy.
It's a lot of songs.
Yeah, it's a lot. So it's pretty much everything I already knew.
I feel like my wife. So my wife and I flew out for the Stoned and Dusted show.
Okay, that was
In Harriet. Right. It was near her birthday, and she's a huge Buzz fan and Melvins fan. If she would never
was that an early 2019? When was that? Was that
Yeah, that was like April or May, I think, of
2019. Got it. Okay.
Happy and Harriet's.
Yeah, I remember. It was like the first bit of touring we did for that run of tours.
That night, you guys, you pulled out a cover, a Stones cover.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sway.
Yeah. And,
yeah, right.
And it was one of those things where I felt like, oh, I could totally win, name that tune right now. First two hits, like 2 beats. I knew it. Oh my God. Well, it's probably that between that and Moonlight Mile, my 2 favorite Stones songs, right? So I was, was that your influence? Was that or was that?
Oh yeah. Well, I think Buzz liked the idea of doing a song off that record. And then he asked me what was my favorite song on the record. And I probably said Sway. And, I mean, I don't know if it's what's your favorite song, but what song, because I mean, I think it was almost like I was tricked. I don't think I knew that he was going to go with whatever I said in terms of like, okay, well, that's the song we're doing then. Because you wouldn't expect, well, also, I think the Stones, they're not an obvious Melvins. I think that's also part of Buzz's trip. Like if he thinks that people think that they've got him figured out, then he wants to immediately scramble that notion, however he can. And that's the only thing you can really count on him for. is for scrambling any kind of assumption you might have, and or the challenge, like, you know, if people are going to think that, like, oh, he makes music in this genre and with these particular traits or whatever, then it's like, oh yeah, well then what about this little slice of boogie woogie?
Right.
uh,
I feel like the Melvins are the creme brulee of the down-tuned, like heavy rock world. Like,
is that like it's like the tasty
yeah, like no one goes to a.
creme brulee? I mean, like creme de la creme, like you're holding them on
Yeah, it's
highest
the
highest
like,
game.
creme brulee is like the is the dessert that all the
This is-
restaurants try to make, but very few perfect it. And
sure.
I feel like
Is it
Melvin.
a good creme brulee? Is it
Oh
does it
yeah,
have
oh, the
has it
fucking
been torched to perfection with the
table. Yeah, at the table.
right? Yeah, yeah. It's got just that right amount of like a little bit of char with your sugar,
It's got the
some
right
burnt
amount of
sugar.
crusty sweetness.
Yeah.
Perfect. And it's
Yeah.
and it's also gooey. Here's come here, Rose. Come on, honey. Rosie's
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'd like to think, yeah, I'd like to think I add to that those elements you described.
Sway made the acoustic recording though, am I right?
I think so. I believe so. Yes.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think yeah, it's a little while ago. I'm trying to remember. We've done Sway a few times, but we were doing it for a few tours, and we also did it once on a we did it once for some podcast or something on a on a metro in San Diego.
Oh, that's rad.
Yeah, we got on a train and someone was filming us and
Oh, that's awesome.
we did that song. Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah.
I
That's cool. But I love that record. I grew up with that record.
I know I have to let you go.
Yeah,
This
it's
is
fun.
um
We both probably have to pee.
yeah, and I have to drive in. I live out in the country. I got to drive into town and pick up my wife at the train station.
Oh, amazing. Where are you?
We're out just outside of Hudson, New York.
Okay. Is that like is that near Poughkeepsie? Where is that?
We're north of Poughkeepsie. If I was gonna go see a rock show, I would go to Albany or maybe Poughkeepsie. I'd go to the Chance Theater. You've probably played the Chance Theater.
Is that in Albany?
That's the Chance Theater is in Poughkeepsie. Uh,
I don't know. Maybe I've played the chance. I just know that I once drove from New York to Montreal, and I think we stayed like we left the city that night and then stayed in Poughkeepsie. And I remember thinking, this is a neat part of the state. This
yeah,
up that highway up to Montreal. Just
we're on the
is
other
that
side of the
that's
river.
a Hudson? That's a Hudson Valley River, right? A Hudson River Valley,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Oh, that's beautiful up there.
We're like 45 minutes from Woodstock, and it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's beautiful.
I haven't done much time up there, but yeah, there's a reason why I know know of these places. There's a reason why musicians end up there and build their lives there. And
Yeah, I meet people up here every week. New.
yeah, escapees.
Yeah, exactly. Especially in the last year and a half, man.
I bet. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Um, I really,
Okay.
I really appreciate you giving me so much time. I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you ever have the inclination to play bass in one of the cover song videos that we do, it's
Oh,
it's fun. They're all live. They're not bullshit cover songs where you lip sync. I make quarantine videos, but everyone does a single pass live performance, and it comes across, I think, well.
if the song's easy enough, I'm game. If I can't, otherwise that makes me panic. The idea that I can't punch in, I can't fix it.
But I just treat it like a live performance. That's what I try. You'd be
Okay.
surprised at how
You like,
very able musicians get nervous about doing a live performance, and it's
yeah,
you've committed your life to this.
Red Light Fever. Um, sure. Yeah, I'm game. I've got
Awesome.
my little space, my little recording space. As you can see, I've got some.
Oh yeah, there you go. Look at all that.
Okay.
Oh, you've got a
That's
little music master.
that's my first bass.
The music master?
Yeah, I still have it.
I've got one. I've got two of those. I bought one for my wife, and hers is black, exactly like that, without the pickup upgrade. And then mine.
Without the DiMarzio. Yeah, my parents got this for me in '78,
Oh yeah, that's no,
and
that's
and
a
and the
custom
and
rig.
the person in the store upsold them the DiMarzio.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Do you put flat
or
one?
'77. Do I keep flat wounds on it? I should, but I have right now. I've got round wounds on because they're small. I mean, they're small. Someone put 3/4 strings on it. I don't remember what the deal was, but I like flats. I have flats on most of my instruments.
That's a fun one to have flat ones on. Mine
Oh
is.
yeah,
I have a cream one that I bought for my. Well, it was white at one point, but it's butchered. Someone at one point made it into a baritone bass. Like there are two extra
oh,
holes, and it's just like it's fucking butchered. But I turned it into a pretty cool thing.
so they try to turn it into a Fender 6,
Well, I turned it back into a bass.
but that's what they were trying to do, I
Yeah,
guess. So it turned into like the Hey Jude bass or whatever.
I put a new bridge on it, and I got a new pick guard, and I got a new pickup. I basically, you know, it's a different bass, but it's a
It
great.
sounds great.
Those
And
things.
then your wife has the same bass, the black one.
78. Yeah,
Hers is a 78. Yeah, I think the weird thing is, I think my parents bought a 78 and 77. Is that possible?
sure.
Like, because I got it for Christmas. I think I got it Christmas 77. But someone at some point took the neck off and verified that it was a 78, I think.
They're the coolest though.
Yeah. Anyways, that's very cool. And yeah, I love it. And you got that for her as a gift. Is that what you said?
Yeah, yeah, I got that for her birthday.
That's
Like
really cool.
she doesn't.
She doesn't play. Oh, so she was like, you were like pressuring her. You're like,
Oh,
she's like, well, I need to be a bass player now.
she loves
Yeah.
music, and loves a lot of different kinds of music. But she loves hip hop and trap music that has a lot of bass in it. But she also loves the Melvins because of how bass heavy it is. Like
Uh
she's,
huh.
and so I just thought, of course, like this is a good gift. If she wants to play it, she's gonna like it more than a mandolin, right?
Sure.
Like a less reasonable person might be like, "Here's a ukulele," but I was like, "No, my wife is into bass. Like, if she's gonna translate her emotions into music, that's how she feels. Like she feels ferocious and distorted."
Wait, speaking of guitar, is that a Carvin behind you, the red one?
Oh no, man! And that
Is
is
that a Hamer or a Carvin? What is that?
a pink Steve Stevens hammer.
Oh, it's a hammer. Okay. Well, okay, my second guess was good. Carvin had a very similar design
At
from
DC.
that same era, the mid '80s, late '80s.
Yeah.
That's nice. And what's the guitar? What's that last guitar?
Oh, that's a Cole. Do you know who Saul Cole is? He was a
No.
California guy. This is the guitar that I've owned longer than any other. It's got a broken string on it right now. It's a very handsome rig.
Oh yeah.
I've had this since 1998, maybe. It's been,
It's almost like a Brian May.
yeah, it's been through hell for sure. It's been on a lot of tours. It's been on every record that I've made for sure. And yeah, now getting guitars from Saul is pretty tricky, and they're a lot more expensive.
Oh wow, it's cool. So he's a luthier in that part of the country.
He's from Portland, Oregon. That's where I
Oh,
lived in Portland and in Seattle, actually.
oh, so that's where you're from?
Yeah. Yeah, so I
Uh,
think we have some mutual friends in Seattle, certainly.
the friends that I have via the Melvins, or what do
Probably
you?
pre-Melvins. I mean,
Okay.
I'm I'm assuming that you're friends with the Fastbacks,
Oh, right. Sure. Yeah, yeah.
probably the
Kim and
Posies,
yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. You know those people?
and yeah, I played with John and was roommates with Ken and
Oh, wild.
his friends.
So,
Yeah,
so you lived in Seattle during that time,
in the '90s.
late '80s, early '90s.
No, I didn't get there till '93.
Oh, yeah, because you were in. I think you said you were in '93. You were in high school, weren't you?
No, no. I grew up in Washington, but I joined the Marine Corps to get out of my little town. I ended up in
Amazing.
fucking Barstow. That's where I
Oh,
did my time. And then I got to Seattle finally and it was yeah, it was like 93. So it was kind of already, locally it had already happened, but on a
you grew up in one of those logging towns like Buzz and Dale?
shittier than their town.
No, I've never been to their
Teeny.
town, but they go on and on about what a cesspool. They're like, oh, it's just a shithole. I'm like, let's go get the key to that city. Come on, let's go play. Let's go
Been
play
there?
in Aberdeen.
Have you ever
I've
been?
never been.
I played a fucking show there. It was great. There was like a historic theater. My town had one flashing red light, like five taverns and five churches, just to paint you
Well,
a very clear picture.
well, Buzz is actually from a town down the road, I guess, which is might be closer to yours. He's from a town called Montesano.
Yeah,
Do you know? Yeah, but what's your town called?
Granite Falls.
Granite Falls. That's in Washington or in Oregon?
It's in
Uh,
Washington, but it's there. Aberdeen is a coastal town, and Granite
Yeah.
Falls is on the Cascade Range. So
Oh, it's in the mountains. So you're from mountain people. Got it.
we're uh, we're,
Right.
we're an automotive type foot. We're grease under our fingernails kind of.
Yeah. But you joined the Marines. Wow. And ended up in Barstow.
Pretty weird, yeah.
It's amazing you survived it. Oh, and
No,
you
no,
know,
you know, it is weird. It's a,
good for you. Yeah, I mean, and eventually Yoko Ono told you how good looking you were.
I think she was just being nice.
She didn't have to say that.
My wife probably slipped her, slipped her some extra eyeliner and it's like, hey, would you pay my husband a compliment? He's having a tough time transitioning to New York City.
Yeah. But okay, right, yeah. So we have people in common
Yeah.
besides Yoko. we I can't claim Yoko.
Besides the tater tots. Yeah.
Yeah.
Besides the love of the Beatles.
Yeah.
Uh, outside outside of the Beatles sphere music, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I'll
Yeah.
I'll reach out. I'm not going to hound you about it because I kind of feel like I kind of put you on the spot, but I'll reach out.
I'll do it. Sure, I'll do it. Is it the thing that John Hopkins? Did you know John Hopkins, the sound guy? No.
No.
Well, he's since deceased, so we don't. And a friend of mine that passed away surprisingly during COVID. It's very sad, but he was the last person that asked me to do uh, something like you were describing, and I thought, oh, I wonder if that's the thing that John Hopkins was asking me about, but and not, yeah, in that name, right? People often think of the hospital, John Hopkins. But
Uh,
anyway, no, it's not. It's neither any of those things. It's not that you've got. So yeah, hit me up.
okay.
Wait, do you have my do, I can give you my email or whatever.
I'll I'll send you a message on Instagram and get your email that way.
There we go.
I don't have a
Let's do
pen.
that.
I do have to run out the door because my wife is
Okay, that
sitting.
was super fun.
Hey, have a great evening
Yeah,
and
you too.
good luck with the record.
Okay, thank you.
Take care, man.
Yeah, you too. Bye.